Good morning. I get a clap. I think that might be from my husband, so I don't know if it counts. I'm Leslie Garcia. I'm the operations pastor here at Humanity Church, and I'm going to be speaking to you this morning for, we're still in our passages series, so you only have to listen to me for like 12-ish minutes. But today I wanted to just talk to you about something that's personal to me. Have you guys ever found yourself in a space where you're just curious, like you're wondering how you got there? Like, I'm not entirely sure how I got here. I love it when my screen goes black because, of course, I don't know this whole talk. But anyway, but it's not where you wanted to be. And you're like, how did I get here? This question always reminds me of the Talking Heads song, Once in a Lifetime. This might date me. But anyway, there's a verse in it that's like, you may ask yourself, where is my large automobile? Or you may tell yourself, is this my beautiful house? Or you may tell yourself, is this my beautiful wife? Because sometimes, like, we are in a situation when we're like, this is not what I thought it was going to be. The reason they make songs like that, though, is because it's not just me who finds myself there. You also find yourself there. I honestly will have to say that I found myself in spaces like this more times than I would care to admit to you on this stage, and especially since it's being taped. But one time that stands out to me very strongly was at the beginning of my marriage. I had pretty fantastic ideas about what marriage was going to be, mostly based on unrealistic data. And if you've ever met Juan and myself, you might have noticed that, I think if I said we're polar opposites, that wouldn't be an overstatement. Like, for instance, I might spend 15 minutes figuring out what shoes to wear with an outfit, and he would spend those same 15 minutes figuring out how not to wear shoes. Or Juan has like big ideas, and I'm like, how are we gonna actually do it? I'm practical. I like everything. I was telling some of the people this morning, I like everything in order. If you come to my house and you touch something on the sink, I might move it when you leave. And Juan leaves the knife on the mayonnaise jar and walks out for a long time. We're just different. You know what I'm saying? But for me, I think I found, I thought marriage I was looking at all these things and I'm like, this is less romantic than I imagined. You know what I mean? But I found myself becoming increasingly unhappy. And I was pretty sure that I had pinpointed the reason, and it was all Juan's fault. There was no really other explanation that made sense to me. Because my thought kind of was like, doesn't he know that he's supposed to do everything the way I want? And I'm actually right about the way I want it? I didn't understand. But I was really unhappy. And I would say I was unhappy for a good year. And one day Juan just asks me, he's like, what's wrong with you? And I looked at him and I'm like, you don't make me happy. And I remember him looking very confused. And he's like, yeah, I can't make you happy. I'm like, what? Have you ever seen a movie? Like you're supposed to now get a boombox and stand outside the window and play my favorite. What do you mean you can't make me happy? But I felt like sucker punch, he doesn't even know the rules. But then he goes on to say, you have to choose happiness. And he's like, I can't choose it for you. And I actually felt sick when he said that, because I thought two things at the exact same time. He's a terrible person, and I think he's right. And I was like, this is my responsibility. And I was really more unhappy about that, to be honest. But that brings me to my verse for the day. And this verse is given, this is Moses speaking to the Israelites before they enter the promised land and before he dies, which he knows is probably going to happen soon. It comes from Deuteronomy 30, and it's 15 to 20. It says, see, I set before you today life and prosperity, death and destruction. For I command you today to love the Lord your God, to walk in obedience to him, and to keep his commands, decrees, and laws. Then you will live in increase, and the Lord your God will bless you in the land you are entering to possess. But if your heart turns away and you are not obedient, and if you are drawn away to bow down to other gods and worship them, I declare to you this day that you will certainly be destroyed. You will not live long in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to enter and possess. This day, I call the heavens and the earth as a witness against you that I have set before you life and death, blessing and curses. Now choose life. You like that hand movement? Anyway, so that you and your children may live, and that you may love the Lord your God, listen to his voice, hold fast to him, for the Lord is your life, and he will give you many years in the land he swore to give your fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Moses just sets out the choices super clearly. The Israelites have the choice of life and prosperity or death and destruction, and there's not really a middle ground. So we actually have the same choices. We're not different from the Israelites. I was choosing death and destruction, specifically the destruction of my marriage. And I feel like it's kind of a risk to tell you that whole story, but I'm telling it to you because you guys do it too. You choose destruction in areas of your life all the time. Sorry. But these are choices that we all face in big or small ways, right? The small decisions, though, are as important as the big ones because that's where the seeds are planted for the bigger decisions that are coming. There's this quote that I want to share from you by a guy named Walter Farrell. It says, "The devil does not shock a saint into alertness by suggesting whooping crimes. He starts off with little, almost inoffensive things to which even the heart of a saint would make only mild protest. Look, very few of us are going to rob a bank at gunpoint. But a lot of us, maybe all of us, would take advantage of a salesperson making a mistake in our favor. And I would say that I don't think very many of us are going to start a sex trafficking ring, but I think a lot of us probably look at porn or flirt with someone who we shouldn't be flirting with, I suspect. But, I mean, if we can learn to choose life when we're faced with the little decisions, the ones, like the sales store one, then when the big things come up, we're more likely to choose life. I think, too, like often when we're not choosing life, we don't think we're choosing death. I think for me, a lot of times I feel like I spin it like this. I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for the life. Like, for instance, I'll fix this relationship when I think the conversation will go better. Or I'm going to fix my finances when I get a better job and I'm making more money. My personal favorite, which I can coach you on if you want later, is I'll start making healthy eating and exercise decisions after this next event. It's become clear to me that there's always another event. But have you noticed that when you're choosing to wait for the life thing that you know is best, there's always just another reason not to do it, right? There's always another event. But we're choosing death and we're disguising it as we're waiting for a better time, a more convenient time to engage in the life that God has for us. I was thinking about this and like, look at Adam and Eve were in the garden with God and they had the choice and they chose death. And we're like, well, I'm not going to do it. I mean, they were there with him. I just feel like, we're going to do it. And so I just don't want you to be fooled also into thinking that it's an easy choice. Because Moses knew that the Israelites would not choose life. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said that to them. He knew what they were going to do. God knows that left to our own devices, we choose death. The whole narrative of the Bible is God sending his son to, God invites us into life. We choose death. He comes back and invites us. He sends his son. This is why Jesus had to come. But here's the question. How do we choose life? Because that's awesome if we know we choose death. But the verse actually tells us. In 16 it says, I command you today, love the Lord your God. Walk in obedience to him. Keep his commands, decrees, and laws. Then you will live in increase. It goes on in 20 to say, love the Lord your God. He's repeating it because we're not too bright. Listen to his voice, which is a lot like walk in obedience, and hold fast to him. keep his decrees and laws. Again, like when they asked Jesus, what do we do? He's like, love the Lord your God. I mean, he's like, well, just tell him again and again, because look, the only hope we have of choosing life is loving God, listening to his voice, holding fast to him, and keeping his commands. And I think if we expect to consistently make a decision that leads to life and prosperity without Jesus, it's a fool's game. So without Jesus, we choose death, right? We might be fooled into thinking it's life, but if it's not connecting us to Jesus, it's not life. The Bible says he is the vine and we are the branches. So we need to be connected to the vine to choose life. I was recently, well, not recently now, but a few weeks ago, whatever, I was trimming my apple tree, and I used that thing that I like to call the thing with the orange handle and the rope. I don't know, it cuts things very high. And I was cutting the branches, but since they were very high, I couldn't really tell like if they were cut off all the way. And there was one that 3 or 4 days later was hanging there dead. And I was like, oh, shoot. But look I severed it, but I didn't sever it enough for it to fall to the ground. So the only hope for this little branch is for me to go pull it the rest of the way off, or for it to hang there dead. I think we're similar to the tree, except for we're not that sad little branch, because if we get cut, there is an option for us to be reconnected. I lost my place. Anyway, when we cut ourselves off from Jesus, we cease to be able to have life, but he's able and available to reconnect us. We disconnect ourselves, obviously, but we do it through attitudes and choices that we make. We do it through judgment. We do it through certainty that we're right. We do it through bitterness and forgiveness, through anger and resentment, and I could probably spend 12 minutes listing ways we do it. But Jesus is willing to reconnect us to himself at a single request. We are continually needing to be reconnected, and he's continually available to make the connection. One way that I think we can stay connected to life is through community. We need to when we invite people into relationship with us, they can help us see when we're not choosing life. But I say invite very specifically, because very few people are going to be brave enough to tell you when you're choosing death, even if you've invited them into the conversation. So if you haven't invited them, I don't think they're going to tell you, honestly. As much as I wanted to hear what I didn't want to hear what Juan had to say to me about our marriage, about my happiness or whatever, I'm really grateful that he had the courage. It felt like audacity in that moment, but that he had the courage to speak that truth to me. He was right. He actually was not making me unhappy. My fantasy of marriage was making me unhappy, and my unwillingness to shift was the cause. But he loved me enough to tell me the truth. It didn't feel like a powerful gift in the moment, but 30-something years later, I can tell you that it changed us. It changed us forever. I was recently in a conversation with a person who's connected to Jesus, and they were really asking to hear God's voice on a certain topic, and they were telling me, like, God's not responding to me. And they have experience. They've heard God before, so they knew what it sounds like, and but they weren't hearing anything on this topic. And I asked, like, have you invited anyone else into the conversation? And this person's like, no. So I was like, hey, are you up for that? So we invited 5 people together, and we got together, and we asked God specifically about this topic. And the result was clear direction. It was unbelievably clear direction, honestly. And so I think the reason why community is so important is because at times you will not be able to hear God's voice maybe on your own behalf. And you will need people to listen for you and to help speak life into you. So I'm going to wrap up by saying this. This is the hidden, not so hidden agenda of Humanity Church, that we want you to experience the amazing life-giving thing that Jesus is up to, and the way that we really believe you're going to do that is through groups. My whole message wasn't to get you in a group, but I'm just saying, you got to surround yourself with people who care about you enough to tell you when you're not choosing life and to point you in the direction of where Jesus has you going. So as you remember, we're going to do some questions, and my questions are going to be up on the board in a second, I think. But the first one is, where are you currently settling for death in your life? And then the next one is, who are you connected to that loves you and loves God enough to call you back to life? So we're going to do that. If you could get in groups of 2 or 3, and we'll do these questions for 5 minutes. Thank you.
This is a great song. Hey, Humanity Church. Juan Garcia here, one of the elders. That was a great talk. Yeah, man. So, yeah, that was awesome. Wow. Interestingly enough, I was scheduled to speak, but not on the same weekend as Leslie. And then things happened, and we got scheduled on the same day. And what's so interesting to me is that we have a really similar talk. It's really awesome. I really think that maybe there's an opportunity here that we need to press into something. That's the message I'm taking away. So, and I know that I know I have found myself so often in a place, either some personal or relational breakdown. And we ask ourselves, how did I get like right here? How did I get like right here? And I want to let you into an insight that I had a tough relationship with my father. And looking back, it was probably 99.9% my doing. And I'm really being descriptive about that, because as the years go by, I think about that often, and I'm realizing, wow, I every year, every day that I think about it, I think, wow, I played 50% of that. Some months and years go by, maybe it was like 60%, and maybe it was 67%. I had a awful complaint of my dad that I did not have an absent father, he just was never home. I don't know how many of you can relate with that. And because my dad was always at work, and holidays, he would be home, and the expectation is that he would be home, but he would get a call, and then he would go to work. And this, I'm telling you, this went on for years and years and years. And me growing up, I got bugged, angry, pissed, resentful. You know how it goes, right? And I remember one day I was 13 years old, 12, 13 in that range, and somebody organized an outdoor neighborhood picnic at church that we were going to. Actually, my mom was forcing me to go to Sunday school too. She didn't force me to go to church, but I had to go to Sunday school. And they organized some event, and by honestly some miracle, my dad went to this thing. And it was amazing. And I thought, well, first, here's how it was. It was that's a trip. Because at this point, I'm beyond the pissed portion. I'm resentful. Well, that's a trip. Well, then they organized a softball game, and my dad could play softball. I didn't know this. I didn't know that my dad could play baseball. And he was actually really, really good. I remember him hitting doubles and every at bat, he got on base. And I remember him playing midfield, was softball, and he could catch and he could throw. And I got angry because I thought, where have you been? Here's something I could actually be proud of, and you withhold it from me? Again, I don't know whose doing was that. Was it his? Was it mine? And then I get married. And I had some hesitations about being a father. We won't get into that. We get married, I get married, and one day, now I have a young son who's awesome. And one day, I'm working all the overtime I can at this point. And honestly, at this point, I'm trying, I know that my relationship with my father has to be repaired because he is actually a really good guy. And I'm angry at him, and it has to get repaired. But you know what? It doesn't have to get repaired today. Maybe I'll wait another 10 years. That, right? Who has the energy? I'm married, figuring it out. I could wait another 10 years. And I did. I waited at least another 7 years. And I kind of was asking God for a miracle, like, hey, you, maitre d' of the sky, fix this. And I remember one day, I'm working all the overtime I can. I'm actually making more money in overtime than I'm making in my regular pay, because at this point we have a kid, wife's not working, and it's just that you have to. I had to. And I remember one day, like, looking at my paycheck and recognizing this is why my father worked all the time, because he had to. And that was God's gift to me. Like, God, I remember God, like, telling me, dude, this is your thing to deal with. And because I am so good, I'm going to intervene, and I'm going to give you this thought. I'm going to give you, I really felt that, like God said to me, bro, get off of it. This is you, and because I'm good, here I am. And I'm telling you, my dad didn't change. He was actually still the sweetest man you'll ever meet. I changed. Like, that perspective that God gave me changed everything. And I'm telling you, it required that intervention for me to shift. Left to my own, I would have done this another decade. Maybe had regret at his funeral. But you know what? God is so good that he did not allow that to happen. That's awesome. And it wasn't my doing. And I'm taking you also back to Moses. Exodus 32. I wanted to read the whole thing, but that's 12 minutes, so I'm not going to do that. I want you guys to reflect on it, chew on it on your own time. But the story goes, Moses goes up to the mountain to intercede on behalf of the people, to commune with God. People, the Israelites, are afraid to deal with this God directly. So up goes Moses, and he spends about 40 days up there with God, talking, going through it. Well, down below, at the base of the mountain, the people are getting really anxious because their leader is gone. And they go to the next guy in command, Aaron, and they said, dude, Aaron, look, this Moses guy, he's gone, right? I don't know what happened to him, but you know what we need you to do? We need you to make us other gods, right? You need to bring other things into this mix so that we can worship those things, like career, status, resentment, bitterness. Those would be really good gods to take the place of what's whole and big and missing in our life. And Aaron, being the strong leader that he says, he goes, okay, here's what we're going to do to honor God. I want everybody to, all the jewelry that you have, all the jewelry, take it off, give it to me. I'm going to melt it down, and I'm an artist, so I've got this tool, and I'm going to make us an idol. Cool. And he makes the golden calf. You guys have heard of the golden calf. And they start to worship it. News gets back up to God. And he's talking to Moses, and they're having deep conversations. And they're so deep that Moses is getting filled, his body's actually getting filled with light, and he's glowing. What a trip. That'd be cool. You ever had a conversation that sparks you, lights you up? Well, this really happened. He was iridescent. It was awesome. So he's having this conversation with God, and God says, pause. Those people down there, I'm about to let them have what they deserve, right? I'm about to take my hand of protection off of them, and I'm about to show them that dying by drowning is a good choice, because they have made themselves an idol of all these things. It looks like a golden calf, but I'm about to take them out. I'm about to let them live in their consequences. I'm about to let them live in another decade of resentment with his father. That's what I'm about to do. I'm about to let him know that if he continues with this resentment, bitterness, anger towards his father's going to die, and that will never be resolved. I'm about to do that. And Moses, a little bit like Jesus, steps in and says, woo, time out. God, remember, you promised them all kinds of stuff. Remember, you promised them if they choose life, they get all this stuff in abundance and the land and riches and all that. And he said, oh, God, relents a little. He goes, you go take care of them. You go deal with them. Moses, all right, I'll go deal with them. And Moses comes down, and he sees what's happening, and now Moses is angry. He's all, oh my gosh. They're lucky I'm not God, because I would have taken them out. But I told God I was going to go talk on their behalf, so here I go. I'm going to go talk to them. And you know what, Aaron? I'm about to put 2 tons of fist into this dude's face, man, because this is not, what the heck? I leave him in charge 40 days? 40 days. We've been in this freaking desert for 40 years, and I can't trust him for 40 days? All right. And I don't know about you. You ever make excuses, but they're true? Like they're really true? Like you really believe it? That's what I mean by true. Like you know. This is not my fault. If my brother hadn't, if my mother hadn't, if my father hadn't, if my wife hadn't, if my kids hadn't, if they made me do it. And this is what Aaron says. And Aaron said, look, let not the anger of my Lord burn hot. You know the people. Come on, bro. 40 years. You know the people. That they are set on evil. Ooh, they're bad. For they said to me, make us gods who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, paradise, we do not know what has become of him. So I said to them, let any who have gold take it off. So they gave it to me, and I threw it into the fire, and out came a golden calf. Look, man, I just threw it in the fire, and out came the golden calf. What am I supposed to do with that? You remember just a minute ago? He was fashioning. He actually had a tool set of how to make idols. Probably retired it because, I should follow Yahweh, the God, Lord Almighty. But he actually crafted the calf. He actually made the calf. He actually shined the calf. He made it. But in that moment, maybe he believed, I just threw the gold in the calf. Out came the calf. That's the situation I found myself in my relationship with my father. Never mind that there had been 10 years of me resenting him and not allowing him into my life and not talking to him. There wasn't non-communicado, right? And never mind that he was actually doing the absolute best that he could do, because what he was taught is you work hard for your family, that's how you show love. Like he was doing good, and I didn't see it. And I created the rift, because the minute my heart changed, I saw the soft lines on my father's face. So I have a couple of questions that I want you guys to consider. One is, in a moment, I want you to consider where you find yourself in a personal or relational mess. And I want you to discuss it. And it don't have to be a big mess. The smaller the mess, the better. You want to know why? Because it's easier to clean up. But if you want to talk about the big messes, please, I want to encourage that also. That's question number one. Question number two is, will you humbly submit yourself to God in these situations, or be clear that you are not going to? And here's how it goes. The rest of the story here is Moses and God throw out a decision to the people, and they tell the people, look, if you align yourself with God and his will, over here. If you don't, cool, over there. And the ones that went over there and then chose not to align themselves with God's goodness, some of them died. A lot of them died. It was bad. And it wasn't that God made it happen. It's God just said, look, if you are not willing to align yourself with what is good, bad things happen. Just like in my situation, I thank God that he gave me the gift and that he redirected me, because I would have been to this day in a broken relationship with my father. And now he does holy, loving, inappropriate things all the time, and I get to laugh about it. Like he literally farts in my general direction and laughs. And that's the perfect dad thing to do. And I would have missed all that. And I don't want to miss it. So I want to leave you with those two questions, guys. And look, really if you don't choose to align yourself with God, I want you to talk about what's getting in the way. No judgment. No judgment. Just like what's getting in the way. Discuss it amongst yourselves. And the bigger thing is, again, I want to encourage you, if there is something that is getting in the way, show up to a community group and be open enough to say what it is that's getting in their way. Thanks, guys.